All right, aloha, friends. Welcome to another episode of Game Time with the GOSS. I'm Brian Gossett. This is presented by GM Sports Media and Get Recruited Websites. Today, joined with my good friend Mark Henry with the Top Texas Prospect Show and On the Mark Show. You can watch the On the Mark Sports Show on Facebook Live every Wednesday from 11 to 12. Hey, thanks for coming on, Mark.
Man, glad to be here, man. Appreciate you having me.
So for football season, we're already 5 weeks in. We're already starting week six later this week. You've gone up to quite a few games. Who's the best team you've seen so far?
Definitely the Duncanville Panthers. I was there at the first game at SMU against South Oak Cliff, who's a very good team as well. And it was a complete domination, especially the first half. DeCorian Moore is as advertised. If you haven't seen DeCorian Moore play, it's my mantra this year is he's a player you need to pull up on. He's worth the admission. Keelan Russell recently committed to SMU. He's playing at a phenomenal level. Top tier level for the quarterback position. Of course, Caden Durham is Caden Durham as well. Defensively, Colin Simmons, the number one player, defensive player in the class of 2024. Also a Hook'em Horns commit as well. In January as well as a Hook'em Horns commit also. And then you've got Keith Ford Jr., who's in the class of 2026, is one of the best players, probably the number one player in the class of 2026 on the opposite end. So that front seven is stacked. They do not give up much on the run, and the back end is the same. Coach Samples has a very, very good team. They're the best team that I've seen this year. They're going to be wire to wire, probably the best team in Texas, unless we spoke like we were speaking off air. Unless there's some kind of where they have a bad game or something penalized or a fumble here or something like that. You have to play a perfect game in order to beat those guys. They're the best team that I've seen this year, for sure.
And you got a Hook'em hat too.
Absolutely. Shout out to hornsports.com, Aaron Carrera. I've started to write for that site as well now, recruiting analyst as well. So, shout out to hornsports.com.
Yeah, me and Kenny will have a talk with you later.
And I've always been Hook'em, so that's just right in my bag.
Yeah, Colin Simmons. I mean, I haven't seen him this year, but I mean, what's it like watching that dude play?
So I met Colin as a sophomore, and when I started to speak with him, I thought he was a senior. A couple of years ago, where they had that run and they lost to North Shore and came up short. Of course, they had the same type of defense at that particular time. Jordan Crook and all of those guys were on that defense at the time, and he was doing his thing then. But just a guy that's very twitchy, a great first step. His hands to create separation and keep the blockers off of him are really what separates him. But the speed off the edge and the way he closes on the ball carrier or the quarterback is what makes him next level. He's a guy that's probably going to go in and get a chance to make an immediate impact in the Longhorn defense very early. He's a five-star recruit. He had probably 30-plus offers. He could have gone anywhere, but he's really dialed in. When you talk to him, he's definitely ready to get to Austin and get started down there. This is a guy that's going to be a menace to college offenses here in the next 2 or 3 years.
When I spoke to you last month, I had asked you, what's the chances Duncanville repeats? I think you said 90%. I know you haven't gotten to see North Shore yet, so are you sticking firm on that 90, or has it gone up a little bit?
I would say I'd stick to that 90. I would venture to say 95%. It's just they're so dominant in all phases of the game. The kicking game, special teams. DeCorian Moore returns punts. You don't want to kick it to him. He's a matchup nightmare outside. They have a sophomore Turner that's just scratching the surface as well. And then, all Keelan has to do if he wants is turn around and hand it off to Caden Durham, who's the best back in the country. And LSU committed that. So they're locked and loaded. That offensive line is playing great. The thing about Duncanville is they control the trenches. And then everything on the outside, you just don't have an answer for it. DeCorian Moore, you can't cover him one-on-one. You have to have a safety over top or some kind of double coverage. And then if you're double covering him, that means someone else is open. So it's kind of really how you want to play it. I thought that South Oak Cliff kind of made some adjustments the second half. They're kind of younger on the back end this year. Coach Ward and those guys over there have a great defense. Definitely South Oak Cliff was a formidable opponent. It's just that Duncanville is just usually a level above their competition. Right now, they're a highly ranked team, probably the best pound for pound team in Texas right now. And I believe that they're a top 5 team in the country.
Yeah, that defense is dominating. They only allowed 13 points, and that was that game you saw against Sock. So they've been on the shutout streak so far. But sticking in that district with DeSoto, of course, Duncanville won the 6A D1 title. DeSoto won the D2 title. Have you got a chance to see them at all this year?
I have. They had a matchup against South Oak Cliff a couple of weeks ago, and they were purely dominant. Brandon Booker, who recently committed to SMU, was the leader on defense. He was all over the place making tackles. Also, Jamari Lays, his running mate at linebacker. Those two guys are two of the best linebackers in the DFW area, maybe in the state on that defense. DJ Bailey, the Sam Houston State commit. Listen, when you talk about a guy that can perform surgery at the quarterback position, DJ's accurate. He gets the ball out quick. He's got great touch on his deep ball. And it's finally his time to shine. I was very impressed with class of 2027 wide receiver Ethan Booby Feaster. We're talking about a guy that's right about almost 30 offers as a freshman. I got to know Booby as a seventh grader, saw him plenty of times last year on the 707 circuit. And he caught a pass and broke right down the sideline and ran right in front of me. So, I told my guy Ron Murray from K104, I said, there goes Booby. I said, that's all I needed to see. Just needed to see it in pads. Of course, I'd seen him, play for DEA and stuff like that. And always at camps, and he was, one of the best receivers regardless of class. He's the real deal. Of course, Tiger Wrighton, Jaden Tradewick, and that offensive line is very, very physical. I thought that they really, really dominated Sock up front in all phases of the game. I think that DeSoto is probably the second best team in the DFW area. And it depends on who you're talking to. They could be the second best team in Texas. But I really just think that they match up with Duncanville, but it's just the dominance of the defense that I think that is going to be the separation. I think that DeSoto offensively is one of the best offenses in the state, but that defense kind of X's everything out. Who's going to block Colin Simmons? Who's going to block January? And then you got Ford on the other side. A formidable opponent up front for DeSoto to handle. Actually, I'll probably be at that game in a few weeks. It's in DeSoto this year, so hopefully that the Eagles can definitely show up and show out. They had a difficult time with Waxahachie this past week, who's another good team in that district that has a really good defense. A guy for Waxahachie that you need to know about is Jacob Irvin. He's on the defensive line there. He's been playing very, very well. He's only a junior. So he's going to start to get some looks, and he controlled the front up there for Waxahachie. And DeSoto ended up pulling away. Lots of penalties in that game is what I heard that kind of kept DeSoto kind of off task or, out of rhythm, if you will. But I think that that's going to be the game. That's the monumental game that's coming up. If both teams stay unbeaten going into that, we're talking about a top 1 or 2 or maybe 3 ranked team matchup here in that particular district coming out.
Yeah, if your name is Booby on the football field, you probably be pretty good.
Absolutely. Listen, man, he's got all of the traits that you want in a big time wide receiver. Of course, DeSoto's becoming synonymous for wide receivers here in the last probably 10, 15 years. Because Jonte Cook's down at the University of Texas now, and he's seeing the field occasionally behind Xavier Worthy. And I think that Booby has the potential to be in that same conversation by the time he finishes high school. He's definitely getting some looks right now. And he's one of the best players, it depends on who you talk to in the class of 2027 right now.
Yeah, shout out to Booby Miles back Permian days. Yeah, District of Doom for real. I mean, with Duncanville, DeSoto, Waxahachie picking up their first loss. Mansfield is 5-0. You can never. I know Cedar Hills has been struggling, but you can't really discount them. So very tough district as usual, and we expect just a race down the stretch. And it's funny because I was talking to Darren about this, Darren Lauber the other week. It's a small chance, but there's a chance. I mean, most likely Duncanville's D1 and DeSoto's D2, but there's that small chance that both go D1, uh, and I'm sure DeSoto doesn't want to do that.
Well, that happened a few years ago, and they ran into him. I think we were all at the start for that game, and it was a I think 20-point affair at that particular time. It most likely DeSoto is going to go D2, and that's the matchup. Of course, all the talk in forums and between guys like us is the matchup that possibly gets North Crowley in there as well. But that also depends on if LD Bell goes to the playoffs, which would knock North Crowley out and make them go into I believe Division One, if I'm not mistaken. It also depends on who makes it out of that district as well. So the common fodder is that matchup with DeSoto and North Crowley that everybody kind of wants to see. Prognosticators kind of get these dream matchups that everybody wants to see, and that's one of them. I really think that North Crowley is a fabulous team. I had a chance to see them a couple of weeks ago up at Lovejoy. Lovejoy was up. We had a rain delay, and they got the halftime, and Coach Gates and company made some adjustments, and they came back and beat them by 20 points. So, that's another great defense as well.
Yeah, Lovejoy was up 20-8 when you had the rain at halftime, and I don't think Lovejoy scored again.
They didn't. That defense is really good. Sterling Brooks, he's a TCU commit over there, really controls the line of scrimmage inside. You got Keith Hodge Jr., who's a linebacker over there. I believe he's a senior. He's a guy that's starting to get some looks on the collegiate ranks. I think he's really more of a hybrid guy. He could probably play strong safety depending on the defense. I think they kind of move him around and attack at different spots with Hodge Jr. I like his game as well. That's a very, very sound team. I love what Coach Gates has done over there. They're really, really turning it up a notch over there. Of course, Jemerson and those guys on offense are just phenomenal. Lots of speed over there at North Crowley.
Yeah, Coach Ray Gates, his second year, doing a great job. Obviously, last year, I think 3 rounds deep, and I think it was the furthest since they won state in 2003. So, doing a great job. Yeah, Chris Jemerson is a real deal, dual threat quarterback. Ferguson on the outside, and then he can hand the ball off to Cornelius Warren, who's very good running back as well. But yeah, and then you mentioned from DeSoto Tiger Ryden, the running back, who's got like 35 offers. I know he kind of got banged up in week 1, but he's back, so good to see him back. This Mark Henry with top Texas prospects and on the Mark Show. We're talking about all these dream matchups, in the 4th or 5th round, what have you. But is there any surprise teams or teams that's kind of under our radar that could make 2, 3 rounds deep in the playoffs?
I had a chance to go up to Salina and watch the Anna Salina game. It went into 4 overtimes, and I was thoroughly impressed with Salina's resolve and their ability to come back. They were down 23-9. Anna had all of the momentum, and this ended up going into 4 overtimes. So I think that Salina is I won't say all the way back, but I think that they're starting to get there. Logan Gutierrez is a sophomore running back up there. That's a phenomenal talent. Of course, you got Knox Porter, the senior quarterback, who's kind of giving them that leadership. And Zayden Demas is a junior guard up there, 6'3", 300 pounds. I think it's a guy that's about to shoot up recruiting radars. He's big, physical. He's got a nasty disposition, and he loves to, road grade and get guys on the ground and open those big holes. They're primarily a running team, but Knox Porter gives them a little bit of that big arm talent to get the ball down the field. And you got Jameson Driver, who's one of the top defensive backs on the defense. The thing that I loved about Salina is their ability to tackle in the open field. Very sound defense. They rally to the football, and they close out on guys like you want a defense to do. I think that they're a sleeper in 4A Division I. It's a possibility that they meet Anna again, Anna came over to Fort Worth last week and got a big victory over a very good Fort Worth All Saints team and beat them by a couple of touchdowns. So DeAndre Williams for Anna as a sophomore quarterback. I think it's a dual threat guy that you'll start to hear about here in the next couple of weeks as the season progresses. Of course, they have Jacob Emmers, who's one of the best players in the state, regardless of class. He was injured when I was up there. I kind of wanted to see him, but he was injured when I went to Salina to see that particular game. I was thoroughly impressed. Listen, that game had everything that you want and say about Texas high school football on Friday nights. Small town, the atmosphere was great. Both stands were packed, and they ended up giving us a show in 4 overtimes. You can't beat that.
Yeah, I was there at All Saints watching Anna, and yeah, that defense is legit. Anna's defense, big bounce back win from that Salina loss, but ended up with 10 sacks against All Saints and Keldon Ryan, the quarterback. C.J. Miller and Cash Williams on defense. They combined for 18 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks. So yeah, an Anna Salina, playoff matchup would be pretty nice. Uh, talking about DFW, but I know you cover a lot of Houston area too. Have you been able to go down and watch some Houston teams this season?
Well, I went down a couple of weeks ago and had a chance to watch a couple of teams. But this week is probably the biggest matchup of the week. You got Katy Jordan going against the Big Red Machine and the Katy Tigers. That's in that 196A district. Nobody's been able to really solve the puzzle when it comes to beating Katy consistently. I think Tompkins and Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Alabama, beat them a couple of years ago. But I think this is the best chance. I really like what Katy Jordan's doing. They got Arizona State commit and Zachariah Samples, who's one of the best receivers in the state. Andrew Marsh in the class of 25 is one of the best receivers in the state. You got Chad Gasper, who's at running back, another top recruit in the class of 2025. And Colin Willits, the quarterback, is a very, very good quarterback. This is their best chance to beat Katy. Of course, both teams are coming in with undefeated records in that particular district. Last year, Katy beat them 70-21. I know those guys. I know Zachariah Sample very well. I know those guys have been having this game circled on their particular schedule. This is going to be the biggest game in the H this week because of what it has district-wise, bragging rights. Katy's kind of like Frisco. It's got 9 or 10 high schools, so it's a plethora of talent. A heavy saturated area when it comes to overall high school talent in that particular area. This is the marquee matchup this week in Houston. And I think that Jordan has a puncher's chance to win. They're going to have to play a clean game. Of course, when you play Katy, everything's about up front what they do, physicality, playing defense, running the football, watching the tight end out of the backfield. Those are the things that Coach Gary Joseph's been doing for a long time. And it's turned out to win state championships. But this is the team that's going to have a chance to get that win against Katy. It's going to be Katy Jordan.
In a couple of these player rankings, for 2024, you might see Colin Simmons #1 from Duncanville. I think maybe Bryant Wesco from Midlothian. I think he's #1 in another ranking. Who thinks who's #1 or #2 down in the Houston area and player wise?
Well, I think that the best player in Houston, it just depends on who you talk to. I think that you can go over to North Shore. In my opinion, it would be Devin Sanchez, the all-world cornerback. He's in the class of 2025. But I think overall player, he's probably one of the best players just because he can shut down one half of the field. We're talking about a guy that's long and athletic. He doesn't really get a lot of activity because he's just that good. When you talk about North Shore, we're talking about the team that's probably going to end up matching up with Duncanville when it comes to heading up the state. They're back with Caleb Bailey, who was injured last year. He was the freshman that won. When he was a freshman, he beat Duncanville with the pass over the middle to David Amandor. He's back and he's playing phenomenal. Of course, you got Christopher Barnes over there as well. You got DeAndre Hardiman Jr. in the backfield as well. So North Shore is the creme de la creme when it comes to uh, best teams in the state of Texas and in Houston. But Atascocita is right on their heels. Of course, Zion Brown's one of the best quarterbacks. He's a senior as well over at Atascocita. Then you also have Braylon Conley, who's one of the top corners in the class of 2024. He's committed to um, the University of Southern California. And I believe that that's the biggest, that's the biggest matchup in a couple of weeks. I'll probably be down in Houston for that matchup. I think it'll be at North Shore because it was at Atascocita last year. You also have Summer Creek, who's playing well, and C. King, or in that same district. This is kind of the Houston district that compares to the District of Doom and DFW, with Atascocita. You have Summer Creek, C. King, and of course North Shore, who's been prevalent in that district for a long time. But here's probably the best player when you ask the best player in Houston and the number one player in Houston. He could be the number one player as well when it comes to these rankings, and that's DJ Lagway of Willis High School. Quietly, the Willis Wildcats are undefeated, and I've been watching them, and they're a sleeper to come out of Houston. I think they would probably go 6A D2, I believe. And listen, when you want to see playoff football and a team that can score, we're talking about the Willis Wildcats. They have a plethora of weapons on the offense. DeBron Hampton, you have Jalen Mickens as well, and then you have DJ Lagway, who's a Florida commit. He's been the number one player, the number one quarterback in the country, and it depends on what rankings and who you talk to. But DJ's been playing phenomenal, and I think that's a sleeper team to come out of the Houston area to make it to state right now. That's just the way that they're playing, and they're blowing people out. I think they got the Woodlands coming up pretty soon, which features maybe Matar, Wisconsin commit, but they've been blowing people out the last couple of weeks. So Willis is kind of north of Houston, but it's considered the Houston area. And if you had the chance to see DJ Lagway play before he goes off to college, he's a guy that you want to pull up. That would be my number one player in the city of Houston overall.
Yeah, I want to go back to sleeper picks just real quick. And, I haven't seen any of these teams. I don't know if you have either, but I'll just throw them out there. Uh, depends on who they match up in the first round, because that Salt Lake district's tough. But if they don't face Salt Lake or Byron, you know, who knows how far they can go. But Crowley Eagles in 3-6A, they're 5-0 with Carlos Lynn playing fantastically. I don't know if you've seen him, but Caleb Williams is not to be not to be mistaken with
USC,
the Heisman
yeah,
front runner, but
yeah.
he's almost playing like it. He's putting up some big numbers, but Crowley could be a team that could make 2-3 rounds deep.
Well, you bring up Crowley. I was at the LD Bell game this past week, and listen,
With our boy
they have.
Terrence, right?
Yes, I was there. Shout out to Big T from the Right Call Sports. Shout out to the Dub as well. Those guys were there as well. Listen, Crowley has one of the best receivers in the class of 2027, and Antavius Ellis. He's electric. He can get deep. He's a guy in space that's quick. He is going to be a 5-star recruit before he finishes his time at Crowley. But Caleb Williams is playing phenomenal. I had a chance to see him up close and personal. I actually saw them in a scrimmage against Brewer in the preseason. But scrimmages are kind of maybe not the full test, and you really don't get to see everybody at full throttle. So this is why I swung back around. And plus, LD Bell was undefeated coming into that game as well. But I went to see Tristan Johnson, the defensive end for LD Bell, is committed to UTSA, and Priest Ash, who's committed to Texas State, who's playing for Crowley. Priest Ash had 4 sacks. He put pressure on the quarterback and was in the backfield constantly the entire night. But Caleb Williams had 3 first-half touchdowns, 2 going to Ellis, which were big, long passes. So he's playing at a phenomenal level. Listen, he's only a junior, so that means he's got another year to get better. He stands about 6'1", maybe 170 pounds. So he's got a chance to really develop his body more. I think coming into his senior year, he's probably going to be one of the best signal callers in the DFW area. Tasby also caught a touchdown from him. They were up 27 to, I want to say, 10 or something like that at halftime. And LD Bell came back and made some adjustments and held them scoreless in the second half. But that was due to Johnson's play. Of course, Caleb Jones, the linebacker for LD Bell, I think is one of the most underrated defensive players in the Metroplex. I think that, collegiate programs should really take a second look at Jones. I love his physicality and his ability to close out on ball carriers. And then what Bell does is they get used to him on third downs, and he rushes the passer. He'll line up from outside and put his hand in the dirt, or either he's a stand-up rusher. He played very well. Also, Jadarius Steele as a safety over LD Bell that I was very impressed with. So I think that Bell has a chance to be very good out of that district. But Crowley, it's going to come down, and what I'm hoping is to see the dream matchup at the end. As, a lot of us are with North Crowley and Crowley at the end. That stadium's going to be packed if we get that undefeated matchup, which I think will happen between those two teams. I think that those two teams are the best in that district right now, with Trinity and LD Bell following. Weatherford's been kind of making some noise, but I don't know if they played as tough a schedule as Crowley and North Crowley has. Listen, here's the thing about Crowley, and we were talking about this. They've been the homecoming matchup for 3 games in a row for teams. Who wants to keep scheduling these guys for homecoming? Does that really make sense? And listen, Carlos Lynn is taking that personal.
Yeah.
He's mentioning that to his guys, and I've heard the guys on. I had a couple of interviews with the guys this week. You can check those out on Instagram at Marc Hen MARC_Hen44 and Twitter as well. Listen, they understand that they've been homecoming for some teams, and usually, the thought about homecoming is you schedule somebody that you can easily beat. Well, Crowley's not that team. The Eagles are formidable. I don't know what these schools are thinking about when they schedule them for homecoming, because this was LD Bell's homecoming,
Right.
which, it could be just a schedule type thing, but you don't schedule a big bad Crowley for homecoming and think you'll come away and win. It's like that bully taking your lunch money, and that's what they came in and did, for 3 quarters. And then, LD Bell got back in the game as well. But, I think the top of that district is, of course, North Crowley, with Crowley coming in a top second, or, 1A or 1B. But, I hope and I'm praying that matchup happens, because I think, those two teams definitely decide the district championship, hopefully at the end of the year.
Yeah, this isn't the same Crowley Eagles, and I'm sure
No,
Coach Lynn is keeping receipts.
absolutely. Well, he's come over and changed the culture in a short time. Of course, Coach RJ Bond is still there, but they have a new OC that's kind of thrown some life into that particular offense. And talking to Priest Ash after the game, they were kind of in a 3-4 lineup last year, and he was kind of more inside. But he's, said the switch to a 4-3 and letting him play on the edge, kind of more his true natural position, has paid dividends over there. Also, Brandon Ford, a linebacker for those guys, is a very good player over there. He's playing at a phenomenal level. So also, Jonathan Blake is a safety over there, class 2025. Listen, when you talk about laying the boom, he does it. He also has the range to it. He made an interception there at the end to kind of close Bell's chance, at shot at the end to try to win or tie the game up. It was 27-20 was the final score. Bell was driving, and Blake came up with a pick to kind of seal the deal. So they have some young talent, and not all of those guys are seniors. So they got some guys that don't be coming back. I think that Crowley's year, to get it done may be this year. Like you said, matchups in the playoffs. They're going to be a playoff team. Let's just say that for sure. Now,
Yeah.
district's going to come down to them in North Crowley.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the way North Crawley's playing, people probably take North Crawley to be first. So I mean, if Crawley can finish second, I think they can win a playoff game. Last year they finished fourth, and we're D2. I think they're always going to be D2, but they had to match up with Salt Lake Carroll, who got bumped down to D2, and that's never a good thing. So if they can kind of stay away from Salt Lake and Byron Nelson, yeah, I think they can win a playoff game, possibly 2. But yeah, the district's going to be coming down to the wire as well. You mentioned Trinity, Weatherford. Bowes was playing very well. Bell. We would love to see Bell make the playoffs. It's been a long time. So another fun district. And then real quick, I just want to mention, uh, maybe not really a surprise team, but surprise in regards because it's only their second year playing football. But that's Frisco Emerson. Led by quarterback Mike Hawkins, who's an OU commit. But they're putting up some big numbers. Of course, they're in that district with Argyle. They're D2, 5A D2, 5A D2, but they're in Region One. So you know, you don't have to really face the likes of Sock and Midlow Heritage, Everman, uh, Lovejoy until much later. But yeah, Emerson. I think when I first started the season, like probably most people, you take Argyle because you're used to Argyle winning that district. But man, I don't know. Emerson putting up big numbers. Argyle's kind of been struggling. Emerson could be a team to go pretty far in the playoffs.
Well, shout out to my guy Mike Hawkins. I had a chance to see him as a sophomore, and I was very impressed. I think he's developed more as a passer now. He was at a 7-on-7 tournament that I was covering, and he was just lighting it up. I mean, surgery. I mean, balls just falling out of the air. Great touch, but his ability to fit the ball in the small windows was really impressive. I think he's taken another step and developed his game as a passer. I think he gives Emerson that jump that they need. Now, Melissa's also in that talk as well, and they've been playing a phenomenal brand of football. They're undefeated,
Number
and
one
they
team in the state.
absolutely for a reason. But they beat up on Argyle pretty good that first game, which Argyle's been a perennial power, and they don't usually get a loss until they either win state or the following year after they won
Yeah,
state. So the pedigree is there. They're going to have something to say about that. That's probably a matchup that I might have to pull up on when it comes to a district championship matchup. I hadn't had a chance to see Emerson, but like I said, I've seen Mike Hawkins work. And he's definitely the reason he's an OU committee is because he's one of the best players in the country, not just in the state. He has a brother over there that's one of the top cornerbacks in the class 2025, and Malik Hawkins, that's playing at a phenomenal level as well. So I think that Emerson's got a chance to really flex their muscles if they get that district. And you speak about matchups. If you're at the top part of the district, you get a lower seed, and if you're at the lower seed, like you spoke about, Crowley drawing South Lake Carroll, and they have to go to Carroll because they won the district
right.
and host a playoff game. That means a lot. So I think that Emerson's really closing the gap as far as being an elite team in DFW. If they take care of business and win the district, I think that sets them up and makes their path easier to state. But like you said, they won't have to see the Lovejoys or Sock or Midlow Heritage until the latter rounds.
Melissa.
But but here's the crazy thing about Texas high school football is you never know on any given Friday night. And hopefully these temperatures are starting to cool down and the weather changes in November and December. Those are things that come into play when it comes to how things shape out or shake out when it comes to playoff matchups. Nothing's given. But yes, I think that Emerson is the favorite in that district right now, just based on the numbers that they're putting up. I mean, I think Mikey's not even playing the second half in a couple of these games because they've been up so much. But the Frisco area is very competitive. You got Panther Creek in that district with Salina and Dallas Carter and those guys that's been playing some phenomenal football as well. So Lone Star, I believe, is doing pretty well after they lost to Texas High. I think Lone Star's rebounded. So
Lone Star,
Frisco's
Lone Star just beat Wakeland, and they're on top of district.
absolutely. That's my point exactly. Wakeland's a very good team as well. Coming out of the Frisco area is another competitive district of high schools. When you have 8 to 10 high schools, you can reach out there and it's like grabbing a bag of candy. You can reach out and come out with the right recipe for success, and that's what they're doing over there. But I really like what you said. I agree. Frisco Emerson is probably the favorite coming out. But you never know. Do not count Argyle out. I mean, that coaching staff up there has been doing it for a long time. And Argyle's one of those cities, like in the Friday Night Lights book, where you walk in and you see kids dressed in orange playing football outside, or the raucous crowd. They have a lot of times these schools have these huge horns now, so you have to kind of get to the other side of the field so you don't get blasted. That's the type of community that they have up there. But I really think that Emerson's flying high this year.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Frisco. Yeah. Lone Star just beat Wakeland. They're on top. Reedy, Reedy's up there too. Panther Creek is doing very well. Braxton Roberts and Christian Trickett are putting up some big numbers in the pass game. So yeah, Frisco's ISD is definitely one of the top school districts in the state. Um, I mean, for me, I'd rather be in 5A D2. I'd rather be in Region One than Region Two, uh, where Emerson and Argyle is Region One. Not to discount any teams in West Texas because there's some good teams in West Texas, but I think the path is just slightly easier. You start with Emerson would start with most likely a Fort Worth ISD team, and you know handle them pretty well, and then but you look at Region Two, and again, Sock, Midlow Heritage is undefeated. Everman took a hard one last week, but they're a bunch of athletes. You can never count on Summit, Ennis, Grayson Harris, the wide receivers, the OU commit, and then in that other district with Lovejoy and Melissa. So that's a district or region of doom, I would say, for 5A D2 Region Two. But you look at those teams, and again, Sock with back-to-back state titles, and you've seen Sock a couple times. I don't know. Is Sock in trouble? Is there going to be a new state champ in D2?
You can never count out Coach Todd and that staff. They're just here's the recipe for success for soccer. They've done it the last couple of years. There's a reason they schedule these difficult games out of the gate because their district is not going to give them a challenge. So they need to kind of see where they're at and they make adjustments from there. I have had a chance to be around those guys' state runs the last couple of years, and that's their recipes for success. Sock's a little young on the back end this year in the secondary, and they're kind of getting those guys up to speed. I think that Will Little got hurt in the game against DeSoto, and Carter Kopecki came in, and he's the quarterback right now, and I think he's really starting to get comfortable. Carter's a guy that can play receiver as well. He's also a punter. But he's kind of getting his feet wet at the quarterback position and kind of really getting into his groove. And that's what they bank on when they build these outrageous schedules. Listen at the teams that they have faced, and they've all been state champions. They faced DeSoto out of the gate. They beat Lancaster. They faced Parish Episcopal, which was the state champion this year, and they beat them. And they lost to DeSoto, which was the state champion. So these guys prepare themselves early for the long run. You can never count them out. I think that they get stronger as the playoffs get deeper. Danny Green's still there, who's a great running back as well. You got Jamari Colley, who's a great wide receiver who's committed to SMU. So they still have the talent there. You can never count South Oak Cliff. I wouldn't bet against them if it was me. If I was a betting man and I had money on the line, I'm picking Sock when it comes to 5A Division II in those playoffs. Again, you mentioned that region, which features Melissa, Lovejoy, Midlow Heritage. It's going to be a tough road. Frisco High has been in that conversation the last couple of years as well. These are opponents that Sock faced weeks in a row. And then if you remember the game that they beat Argyle in, the Fog Bowl is what I call it out there in North Crowley.
I was
That
there.
was that was an amazing game, and they kept Argyle, which came in that game undefeated and ranked, I believe, number one in the state at that particular time, and had an offense that was scoring 20 to 30 points a game. They held them to like 6. So defensively, that's what they hang their hat on. I think the Sox going to still be there. You have to beat the big dog in order to beat the big dog. And until somebody knocks them off, I'm rolling with Sox every time.
Uh, you know, didn't get a chance to talk to you on Saturday, but we were both out at Clark Stadium in Fort Worth watching Wide and Southwest. And I mean, I know last year Arlington Heights was kind of the team in Fort Worth ISD. They went 10-1, played for a district title, won a playoff game. There's a big test this week. We were talking about games to go to. Wyatt is playing Arlington Heights on Friday. If you need a game, but uh, yeah, what are your thoughts about Wyatt? It was kind of close there early on, and they just steamrolled past Southwest.
Well, listen, I think that they made the best of it. Their quarterback was injured. I saw him on crutches, and so they had a new guy came in that kind of once they got on track, they established that running game. I think that Wide's offensive line is their strength right now. Those big guys up front kind of moved the crowd and controlled the game, and that's what ended up leading to them putting up 30 points in the first half, and then they were on cruise control after that. I think that that's their strength. Um, Arlington Heights was the creme de la creme of that district the last 2 years. They made a deep playoff run. I think they went to the third round before losing out in West Texas last year. So that might be a game that I have to pull up on and see, because whoever wins that game is probably going to be the district champion. I was impressed with their offensive line play out at Wyatt. I think that's going to be their key. Can they control the line of scrimmage? I hadn't seen Heights this year, but I've been keeping up with them as well. I think that they're a playoff team, but whoever wins this game is probably going to be the district champion. But this will probably be Wyatt's toughest test to this date. I think that Heights gets up for these games. Arlington Heights has always felt they've been overlooked in Fort Worth. That's just the general feel that I get from, whenever I talk to players or go to their games, is they always felt like they've been overlooked. Of course, Wyatt historically has been the best team in Fort Worth for a long time. You have to go back into the 90s when they had all of those phenomenal players over there. Of course, a world-class track team as well. I'm always rooting for the Fort Worth ISD teams. I think they don't get a lot of love, and that's why you'll see me pull up at a game every now and then just to kind of see what's going on with these schools, because they just don't get the coverage that they should get. If you look in the crowds, the stands, it's kind of disappointing sometimes that they don't get the support as a school at schools, each school. You know what I mean? Like, when you go to some of these Dallas games, which I have a chance to go to, it's a different story. So I'm always pulling for these guys. You have a chance to win district and be a playoff team. You got to take care of that. And also, like we spoke about, that gets, if Wyatt wins, they are upper echelon team when it comes to positioning in the playoffs, and they get to host the playoff game. So, I think that right now, if I had to pick a favorite in that game, definitely Wyatt. So, there may be a game that I have to pull up on actually this week.
Yeah, it's you kind of don't want to finish third or fourth in that district because then playoff comes around. First round, Emerson or Argyle, and then you can't even discount Lake Dallas, who's undefeated. So you might have to win that district to even have a chance. But I just want to confirm with you. You're saying the winner of Wyatt and Heights are going to be district champs or Fort Worth ISD champs?
I'm saying district champs in that particular district.
Because you covered Grapevine, Colleyville.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that Wyatt has a chance to play with those guys this year. I
Okay.
haven't seen Grapevine or Colleyville. Of course, those two guys have been that particular, district champ. But listen, what I saw from Wyatt, like I said, if they control the offensive line, they can be district champs. And that's the key to anything in the trenches. Definitely, I think Wyatt has a chance to be district champs.
All right. You heard it here first.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'll just let you get on this. Just kind of give you more red carpet, but talk about what's coming up. I know you got on the Marc Sports podcast show coming up. Just who are you going to have on, and what's your schedule like coming up?
This week we got Wendy from IBT. She's a top therapist. She works with athletes. So we're going to be talking about injuries and how she's been treating her athletes. And then, the record heat that we had this summer, how she treated her athletes when they came in with heat-related injuries and things like that. That's our guest for this week. As far as what's coming up, just a lot of games. Of course, busy with the Top Texas Prospect Show as well with my guy Matt Davidson. Also, the Third Coast Gridiron, which focuses on Houston high school football as well. Both of those shows are on the LSG network and also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Like I said, also writing for hornsports.com, Prep Red Zone Texas as well, and the platform. So busy. If the pen's not working, I'm on a show with you, hosting a show, talking to guys about football around the state of Texas. So usually, I'm ripping running all over, man. I probably need to hire a secretary.
We all do.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Again, you can see the On the Mark Sports Show podcast on Facebook Live uh, tomorrow, Wednesday, 11 to 12. You can also check out him on Top Texas Show podcast. And then just a shout out again to Fort Worth ISD, big games, Wyatt and Heights on Friday. You also have Dunbar and Western Hills on Thursday, which is going to be the CW football game of the week. So go, if you can't make it, be sure to tune in on TV. But well, thanks again, my friend, for joining me. Always a pleasure talking to you. That's Mark Henry. You can follow him on Twitter at Mark HEN44 MARCHEN44, and again, go check out his shows. But hey, Mark, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome. Well, I'm Brian Gossett. This was Game Time with the Goss, presented by GM Sports Media and Get Recruited websites. Thanks for joining, and enjoy the rest of your week and week 6. And we will talk to you next time. Welcome.